U.S. geopolitical think tanks are monitoring a cluster of data nodes over South Asia, even as the world focuses on the Middle East. These analysts have identified a high-probability window for a major armed conflict between India and Pakistan, specifically pinpointed for the year 2026. This projection is based on observable data patterns, the life cycle of military procurement, specific shifts in troop positioning, and an escalation in diplomatic rhetoric tracking closely with previous pre-war cycles. This 2026 countdown has already begun. The aggressive statements issued by regional leaders are early warning indicators of a shifting military posture rather than standard domestic politics. Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Asif recently issued a statement that shifts away from typical border dispute rhetoric toward a much more severe threat. Asif explicitly stated military operations will no longer be contained within the 250-kilometer border zone. He is promising to strike deep inside Indian territory, targeting major population centers. Pakistani President Asif Zardari echoed this stance in parliament, formally accusing India of preparing for war. This narrative creates a tailored defensive pretext to justify a future preemptive strike. These threats of kinetic strikes on cities are dangerous, but they serve as a smokescreen. They hide a sophisticated strategic vulnerability India faces in the digital and diplomatic domains. Consider a scenario where Pakistan initiates a preemptive strike based on fabricated intelligence reports. This is a primary risk factor identified by geopolitical analysts. India's immediate defense against such a strike relies on high-readiness systems like the S-400. This missile defense grid is designed to intercept and neutralize aerial threats before they can reach urban population centers. Records of previous engagements show Pakistan has struggled to successfully target Indian military bases. In contrast, India has a proven capacity to strike deep-tier Pakistani military infrastructure with precision. The Pakistani military establishment faces a mathematical disadvantage in a purely physical, kinetic war. To offset this, they have transitioned their primary operations into the information domain, a battlefield where India has fewer dedicated defenses. This strategy is known as information warfare. It is used to offset physical military disadvantages by manipulating the global perception of the conflict. The aftermath of the Balakot airstrikes served as a successful proof of concept for this strategy, demonstrating how quickly a narrative can be manipulated regardless of the facts on the ground. The first tactic involves flooding global digital platforms with reports of fabricated victories, such as false claims of shooting down multiple Indian fighter jets to stir domestic support. The second tactic is the total suppression of truth. While they broadcast fake wins, they use state controls to hide their own destroyed bases and infrastructure losses from the international press. The third tactic focuses on diplomatic positioning. The central government issues official pleas for peace to the United Nations while simultaneously maintaining the funding pipelines for proxy terror groups. These narratives are often amplified by Chinese geopolitical networks. They are specifically designed to exploit the editorial blind spots of Western media outlets that lack local context. In this modern shadow war, the physical destruction of 10 airbases is secondary to the goal of convincing the UN and the Western press that you are the victim of the engagement. A 2026 conflict's outcome would be determined in the first 72 hours. This window triggers a global diplomatic reaction that locks the narrative. Within 3 days, the news cycle cements the aggressor's identity. Once accepted internationally, it's nearly impossible to reverse militarily. If India fails to control the story during this 72-hour window, military superiority will not prevent international isolation or the imposition of a disadvantageous ceasefire. Strategic analysts argue that India's current public relations protocols are mismatched against the rapid pace of modern digital disinformation. Experts are now calling for a comprehensive institutional body. This would be a dedicated agency focused entirely on projecting a factual global narrative and countering state-sponsored propaganda. Pakistan's centralized military state structure allows it to unify and broadcast disinformation instantly. As an open democracy with internal debate, India requires a specialized shield to neutralize these coordinated information strikes. The physical munitions for a 2026 conflict are in production, but the disinformation to justify them is already circulating. India must prepare immediately.